Hey guys, it's Kerri-Ann and I'm back today with another video for you. So today is Tuesday. All my days are getting muddled up at the moment, as I'm sure a lot of you are having the same issue. But today's Tuesday and my children are having a lovely day with their dad today, so I thought I would spend some time doing some videos for you. Today I feel like doing a bit of watercolour. So I thought I would do for this video just showing you how I set up for a day or a morning of painting with my watercolours, and then we can just do some quick sort of watercolour sketches and yeah, so really it's just a sort of an introduction to watercolour today for the video. So first of all I'll show you what I've got on my desk. Obviously you can you can see my flowers. These are chives from the garden, so these are chive flowers, so we'll just pop them a little bit out of the way. And you can see a few bits of what I've got, but what I'll do is I'll hold them up so you can see a bit better. So the paper I've got here, I'm working on quarter imperial size paper at the moment, similar to A3, not quite as big as A3, so that's what I'm working on at the moment. I'm using my watercolour palette. I have done a video, so if you want to see how and why I've set it up this way, you can hop back and have a look at the video. So this is my SAA watercolours. On the colours I've got the little names here, so I know the names of what I'm using. If I am doing sort of sketch work or book work, I actually note down and swatch the colours to the side to remind myself what colours I used, so that when I go on to do the final piece I can go back and get the same colour mixes and colour blends. So I'm using this water palette today. So these colours, if you haven't seen the other video, they are actually tubes that I have put into the words escaped me now, pans. So tubes I put into the pans and they've dried, and then I go back and refill them and things. So that's the watercolour I'm using today. Then also to the side of me I've got my fine liner pens. Anyone that follows me and watches my art videos know that I tend to do watercolour bases and then fine liner overlays. Obviously I won't be using these straight away unless I'm going to do fine liner base with watercolour overlay, see how I feel. I don't have a plan today. So I've bought my pens just in case I need them. Most of these are by Unipin, but I also have a Sharpie in there. I also have micron pigment pens in there. There's a real mix in there. Then I've got my brushes and pencils. So pencils are just all different types of pencils that I might need. And then this is just a real mix of brushes. But the brushes that I'm going to use today are going to be my SAA brushes. And let's pull that one out as well. I usually keep these in a folder, a brush folder, which is back there somewhere, but because I've been using them so regularly, they're just in my mixed pot, which usually you'll find just behind me up there. So these are the brushes that I'm going to keep out with me today. So it's a 10, a 6, and another 10, a 2, so there's a mixture there depending on what I need. And to the side of me on this side I've got my tissue. I always have some tissue there to blot off the water. I've got 2 water pots, not to drink. These are for washing off the brush and adding water to the paint. So I tend to use, if I can remember, so that I don't dirty up the watercolour. I've also got kitchen roll in case I need to use that for blotting anything up. I've got my masking fluid, and I got my trusty can of Coke today. No coffee today, usually I have coffee, but I fancied something different today, so I've got Diet Cola today. Oh, and to the side of me here I've got my Brushos and my wax resist sticks. So I intermix between using Brusho and infusion, so I've usually got some form of pigment powder around me, but at the moment I seem to be using Brusho more than infusion. I blame Alison for that. One of my favourite artists, Alison Seaboard, uses Brushos a lot, so I think I've kind of fallen in love with them from watching so many of her tutorials. So let's have a play around. Let's see if I can get this so that you can actually see. So at the moment my core interest for watercolour work has been combining my love of flowers. So I've been using flowers a lot in my work from day one, but I've actually been trying to combine flowers with sea life. Because I live here in Seaton, by the sea, I just thought it would be quite nice if I can combine my two loves of living in Seaton, but also of fauna and flowers and things. So what I wanted to try today was to see if I could work out a way of bringing the two together. So I'm going to have a play around for the next few weeks combining the two. So this here is just how I start off most of my watercolour pieces. I tend to have a pencil. I've always got a rubber in the side. I forgot to mention I've always got a rubber in the side of my table here, so that if I go too heavy with the pencil, or if I make a mark that I don't want to keep, that I can remove it. So this is a really basic idea here, having the jellyfish tentacles coming down, and then mixing in a few flowers. These flowers are just going to be doodled flowers. They're not going to be proper flowers at this point. This is an initial beginning sketch, so I'm just going to see how, I don't know if you can see that there, but this is just the really basic idea of what I thought I could start off with. So I'm going to lay down some water now on the top of the jellyfish. Obviously the good thing about using the pencil underneath gives me a guide of where I'm going to go, but it means I can remove it afterwards if I want to, or go over it with the fine liner. Let's see, what colour should we go for? I'm thinking bluey purple for the jellyfish actually. Let's see what we can go for here. Let's start dropping it into the wet. So this is obviously wet in wet that I'm doing here, and I'm just letting it flow. I've got no core plan, as I say, for this piece. I'm not doing anything too specific. I'm not trying to make it perfect. This is just me getting my ideas onto paper. So I'm just bringing some more water and pushing it around here. So this was just clear water that I'm dripping in again, just to see if I can you see how the water's pushing the pigment to the edges? I really like that effect. That's why I bring more water in, just to phase it out. So if I start bringing in some colour now, bringing in some of the purple, so I'm just using one of the reds, the alizarin crimson, and it's just going to make a little bit of the purple coming in there. So I'm just adding it into the water, and I'm really letting that water do its own thing. And obviously where the water starts drying on the other side, you might need to rehydrate it. So I'm just bringing in the different shades, the blue and the purple, just to see where it ends up going. So this is one of the most easy ways of working in watercolour, is this free flow motion, allowing the water to take control and move things around for you. I'm just extending the edge here by using the wet brush, bringing it round, and now I'm going to start bringing it under so that I get that shape of the jellyfish that I wanted. Now obviously the key thing to remember here is also with watercolours, the colours that you're seeing whilst wet are going to change when dry. So if you want the darker colours, then obviously when it's dry, I mean, if you want them to be nice and bright or dark or however you want them to be, you need to make sure that they are very dark when it's wet, because obviously they always dry lighter. Different with different brands, but mainly from my experience, all the watercolours dry a lighter shade than what you see when they're wet. So I'm just dropping in. So you can see there that this paper is only practice paper. So what can happen if I allow the water to sit there for too long? It can soak into the paper and damage it a little bit. So I'm just going to pick some up. Can you see how using a tiny bit of paper, tissue paper, just picks it up? It's left the colour behind underneath, but it takes away where there was too much water, which may have damaged and made the paper go funny. So I'm just absorbing the water there. Okay, let's bring in a little bit more of the blue. So this is obviously just how I work as well. Just remember, lots of different artists work in lots of different ways, and it's good to watch lots of different videos of all your different artists and just see which way you want to work, and don't feel like the ways everybody else works are the ways you've got to work. Experiment, have fun. I spend lots of time watching videos of my favourite artists, but then I always end up working in completely different ways to them, because I just end up experimenting and trying new things. So the way that you see me painting today with watercolours might be totally different to how you want to paint or how you've seen other people painting with watercolours. This is just some really basic ways you can have a play around with watercolours. So what I'm doing now is I'm using that darker blue and I'm dropping in dots of the colour, and because the page is still wet, it's actually blending out into the background of that purpley colour that we've got going on there. This side I've left slightly less red on this side, so it's going to be a different shade on that side. I quite like that effect there, so I might leave that how it is there like that. Just bringing this down here. Okay, so what I'm going to do now is I'm actually going to use a damp brush and bring these tentacles down. I don't think that's actually what they're called, is it? But I'm going to, tentacles, I'm going to start bringing them down with a clear brush, but let the paint flow from the top there. So I'm just bringing them down, bringing it down, just a tiny bit more water on the brush. There we go. So obviously this side where it's lighter, it's going to be lighter on those. But I can go back into them if I want to and add some more colour. But this is for those background shadowy ones that I'm doing. Can you see how the colour's coming down on these ones? I don't know if you can see there with that angle, but I'll do an overhead video as well. Do let me know if you prefer the overhead videos, and I can go back to doing it that way. But I just thought it'd be nice if we could see how I sit and do the watercolouring for a change. Let's have a look if we bring those ones down. So now I'm just going to bring some colour into the flowers, and I'm just using very small amounts on the brush. I'm just filling these little flowers that I penciled out earlier. So as I say, this is not a planned piece, this is just some ideas of how I can interlink flowers with the sea life that I'm enjoying doing at the moment. And this is obviously only the base as well, because I always tend to add now fine liner overlays, which is where I feel that it brings it to life in my work. So this is obviously the base where the colour is going to be, and then I'll add some pen over the top, some fine liner over the top at the end as well. So I'm just highlighting these little flowers now. What I think might be good is if I actually bring some of this colour into these two. Let's see if I can do that without ruining it. I think that's looking okay. Let's bring these down here. I think I could get away with a few more flowers actually. It's hard to know how much to wiggle these ones. I think I'm just going to do them very slightly. Add a bit more drop of this colour up here, just to move it around a little bit. I do go quiet when I'm painting, when I get into a zone I found, so I'm very sorry if I'm going very quiet. There we go, bringing it in together there. So maybe a few blue flowers. Let's have a think. Do we need some blue flowers? So these are freehand with the watercolour. I haven't actually penciled these in, so let's see if these work. Now the other thing I start to think about when I get to this stage is whether or not I'm going to splatter the work. And by that I mean adding droplets of the colours that I'm using over the top. So I tap the brush and it gives sort of splattery effect. And I never know whether I'm going to do that or not until the very end. Because it just sort of, I decide does it need it or not. And I think this one could benefit from it actually. It might have benefited from a bit of a background bleed of water. But we'll see where we go. See where it takes us. I think maybe some variation of styles of flowers would be nice as well actually, having different shaped petals or something like that. But this is just a sketch. This is a basic idea that I want to start putting in. So I'm layering up the colour now to make some of these flowers a bit deeper than others. As I said before, the shade will dry much lighter. So once this dries, what I'll do is I'll add my fine liner overlay, and I will pop a picture, a link to the picture, so you can see how it looks when it's finished. Because obviously it takes time to dry. I'm quite happy with that. For a first sketch of an idea of how I want them to come together, I think that's working okay. And you see the little white patches here? I want these sort of lighter at least. If I don't want them quite white, I can just bring the water over the top. But what I don't want to do is take away the lightness of this side. I want it to be lighter. And if you do want to take any colour away, use a little bit of tissue and just blot it up. And you can then lighten up any areas that you want to. It takes away some of the colour and some of the water. There we go. So there we go. So that's my first initial sketch for today finished. So just a really simple watercolour jellyfish with some flowers there. Let me see if I can hold it up so you can see. Obviously it's not dry yet. So that's how he's looking at the moment. But I'll do my fine liner overlay when he's dry and let you see what he looks like. But hopefully this has given you a bit of inspiration today to get your watercolours out, your pens, your pencils, and have a lovely day creating. Thanks for watching everyone. Have a lovely day. Bye.